This is the Dzogchen Someday Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. It is Qui-Gon Jinn Tuesday early morning. Together, let us explore let us demystify Chandali or Tummo meditation, and then meditate like a Jedi. If you are a sci-fi geek like myself, you may remember the third Alien movie that took place on the double Y, or was it the triple Y, prison planet, where the magistrate began every every group meeting with the phrase "remote control." So we're going to begin by dispelling some dangerous myths. And these two myths might seem different, but they are related. Those myths are concentration, active focus, and elitism. Ooh, this is for special people. So let's dispel that right now. So what is the mechanism? How are these two related? How is the desire to practice active focus and the desire to either spread elitism or heed elitism, how are they related? In contemporary archaeology, there's the strong feeling that our Paleolithic ancestors enjoyed a type of proto-communism, wherein each individual, the majority of individuals, were flexible, loving, rational, laid back, egalitarian, lucid, cooperative, and kind. Approximately 13,000 years ago, during the Neolithic Revolution, we saw the rise of a type of proto-capitalism, which set society on its head and trained people, conditions people to be much more rigid, fearful, superstitious, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and cruel. It is our rigid and controlling tendencies that drive us to actively focus and actively analyze. It is Yang's religious or irreligious patriarchy that makes us more of a grumpy Mace Windu instead of a groovy Qui-Gon Jinn, more of a Big Lebowski instead of simply being like the dude. So now that we see how elitism and rigidity and controlling are what's three of the legacies of Yang's religious patriarchy, it makes more sense. And that's just philosophizing and theorizing, so let's get down to the brass tacks of neuroscience. I'm not a neuroscience scientist, but I've sat at the feet of enough neuroscientists to share some ideas with you. The only part of our brain that is capable of active focus could be described as the medial prefrontal cortex. When we overuse that, treating it as a panacea. We can exhaust the front of our brain to such a degree, A, that we begin to present with symptoms of depression, and B, that we trigger our amygdala, which functions as the seat of both anxiety and aggression. So the price of active focus, the price of rigid concentration, is that it makes us less peaceful and less loving and more anxious and more aggressive. I think we could all agree that is a destination we don't want to travel to. That is a drink we do not wish to imbibe. But now a bit of good news. Neither the prefrontal cortex nor the amygdala constitute the entirety of our central nervous system. How can we get out of this pickle we find ourselves in? The one-word answer would be spinal cord. Its fancy name, it could be described as the hub of our autonomic nervous system. When we take a break from actively competing against it and instead passively cooperate with it, something amazing happens. Not only do we experience greater awareness, not only do we experience greater peace, but the aggression and the anxiety and aggression of our amygdala is calmed. And the empathy of our anterior cingulate gyrus is gently and non-neurotically stimulated. That's fabulous. Sounds great. Sign me up. How do we do that? Simple. I'm going to teach you a two-step process right now. We'll begin with mindfulness. Every time we inhale, whether we know it or not, we are already wired to automatically access the middle bit of our spinal cord, which could be described as the hub of our sympathetic nervous system. It has evolved to help us to notice in a very special way. It has evolved to help us to vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly, attributes which are most certainly yin. It has evolved to help us to vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly notice all mind's antics of perception. Seeing, hearing, feeling, tasting, smelling, and the like, including the full spectrum of human emotions, intentions, cognitions, recollections, and imaginings. All of them. From the external to the internal, from the physical to the mental, from the pleasurable to the painful, from the interesting to the boring, from the glorious to the grotesque. But what are we going to do with all that stuff that we noticed? In a word, meditation. You see, every time we exhale, whether we know it or not, we've already evolved to automatically access the tippy top and the very bottom of that same spinal cord. These two regions working as a team could be described as the hub of our parasympathetic nervous system, which has evolved to help us to physically relax and mentally release during our exhalation to such a degree that which we noticed during our previous inhalation could fleetingly feel a little bit less stressful, a little bit less permanent, a little bit less defining, and even as non-graspable as a vast empty void. My fourth grade teacher at Platte Ranch Elementary School explained that a simile is only as useful as it is relatable That was important because I was obsessed only with the $6 million man. Not everyone could relate to that. Um, and so we have to ask the question, what is a real world example of a non-graspable vast empty void? How about the illusion of the infinite azure sky on a bright and beautiful cloudless morn, which although could look tantalizing to the eye, could feel non-graspable to the hand? And so we see that whether we're dealing with emptiness or whether we're dealing with the idea of no self, they're just metaphors to describe the experience latent within every exhalation. So, because of the society we were raised in, the majority of humanity has been conditioned to actively compete against our own autonomic nervous system. But like a forgotten app on our smartphone that is already there, already working in the background, our autonomic nervous system remains. And when we set aside a few minutes to sit, maybe once every 12 hours or so, we are passively cooperating with our autonomic nervous system, which not only enhances our awareness and our peace, but pacifies our aggression and anxiety and multiplies our empathy. As an extra added plus, simply by playing with mindfulness and meditation, the remaining 6 folds of the Buddha's 8-fold path of enlightenment are taken care of automatically. Simply by noticing and relaxing, we cannot help but experience more impermanence and non-graspability, though fleeting they might be. The more we notice and relax in harmony with our inhalations and exhalations, the kinder our intention and communication and conduct and commerce becomes. The 2nd through 5th folds of the 8-fold path to enlightenment. The more we notice and relax in harmony with our inhalation and our exhalation, the more we experience, the more our choices and utterances and deeds flow, not from contrived calculations, not from wild scatterness, but instead from love's deeply centered spontaneity. This is known by many names, such as right effort, or effortless effort, or doing without doing, or wu wei, or going with the flow, or being in the zone. This is the key to us using all the organelles of our central nervous system in the most sustainable way. This is the key that unlocks the vault to our own inner genius, both analytical and creative. But what has that to do with Tummo meditation? Glad you asked. We've already seen the folly of active focus, so we're going to practice an energy work, or Anu Yoga, that is the opposite of rigid and controlling. We're going to practice a manner that is flexible and effortless and easy. Patriarchy, in all its iterations, hates things that are easy. They love things that are difficult. The great 20th century physicist Albert Einstein is said to have quipped that any educated idiot can make things more difficult, more complicated, and more violent. However, it takes a lot of courage and a little bit of genius to move in the opposite direction. And that is what we're going to do right now. So I'm going to tap button number 4. Consider, if you will, the real or imagined central channel in one of the most popular forms of Hindu chakra work. We discussed the 7 chakras. However, in the most popular form of Buddhist energy work, we limit ourselves to 5 chakras. 5 is a number used, is a prime number used often in Mahayana Buddhism. We can look at our hand and see 5 digits on each limb. We can discuss the 5 elements, the 5 aggregates, the 5 mental poisons, the 5 transcendental wisdoms, and the like. So 5 rears its head often. Patriarchy would say, ooh, it's mystical and magical. Matriarchy would say, no, we have 5 fingers, so of course we're going to think in terms of 5. There's no mystery. Where patriarchy is superstitious, matriarchy is rational. Where patriarchy says, let's be active and make it as difficult as possible so we have bragging rights. Matriarchy says the opposite. Let's make it as easy as possible so everyone can do it. And bragging is just exhausting. Regardless of which system we use, we talk about the navel chakra. And as you can see here by my handy-dandy illustration that was done for me by an artist on, what's it called? Upwork. And of course, a bit of graphics I found on Canva. I created this bit for you. This is nothing mystical, it's nothing magical. It's been around for thousands of years. So what is the effortless, easy way to gently invite our real or imagined subtle energies to beneficially coalesce in the region behind our navel? Not focus on it, not to do magic, not to walk through walls, not to do the Jedi mind trick, although that could be a lot of fun, but simply as a way to help support our body in the task of sitting. I once lamented to a pal of mine, Reverend Allen, that I found an hour worth of healing or an hour worth of meditating to be exhausted. And my friend Reverend Allen always liked working blue. And he chuckled and said, hey, you do anything for an hour, it's going to tire you out. And so as someone with multiple disabilities working against me at the same time, I found the following technique that it helps to support my body to meditate at least twice a day on an average day and 4 times on a very good day. 4 times a day on a very good day. There are many, many ways to do that. This is what I'm going to show you is the method that is the easiest and the most surefire. What I like to do is, let me coordinate the camera. Here we go. I like to rest the lower knuckle of my right ring finger. I like to set it upon the tip of my left ring finger, and then I swing my elbows out, So my hands are relatively parallel, palms up, and rest this whole assembly, this whole mishigas, if you prefer Yiddish, palms up in my lap. Whether I feel it or not, whether I believe it or not, we live in an interdependent universe where things are affected by other things and affect other things. If not directly, then indirectly. If not overtly, then subtly. If not immediately, then eventually. If not actually, then potentially. We don't have to believe in interdependence, but we can't help but notice it. If we drop a cinder block on our toe, we will notice that it has an effect on our bones and our skin. We can have a contusion. We could have a bruise. We could have a hematoma, another multisyllabic word. We could have a fracture, for God's sakes. So that's simple, non-spooky interdependence. So everything we do has an effect, regardless of our willingness or ability to perceive it. There are always, so I'm going to tap for a moment button 9. Now it might sound like I'm beating a dead horse, which is an unfortunate turn of phrase for a vegan, but consider this. Sturgeon's law reminds us that 90% of everything sucks. That 90% of things, beings, and phenomena, 90% of meditation teachers have been taught to be rigid, fearful, superstitious, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and cruel. And so they will try to scare us and say there's only one way to do it. They'll invoke the blessings of real or imagined entities, try to control you. They'll most certainly be elitist. But the path of the Buddha, the path of Lao Tzu, the path of the Christ, the path of Kuan Yin is to be flexible, loving, rational, laid back, egalitarian, lucid, cooperative, and kind. So I've been prattling on for the better part of a half hour. So here's what I'd like to do. We're going to shift gears. So what I'm about to utter next is for people who are only listening to the the extract, I guess that's the right word, of this lesson. So bear with me. You have taken your first step into a much larger world. If you feel that I have earned it, you could give this live stream a thumbs up. You could even help support this channel. For Meditate Like a Jedi is made possible thanks to the generosity of viewers just like you. And now, for the remainder of this morning's live stream, let us sit and notice and relax in harmony with our inhalation and our exhalation as we play with various and sundry hand positions. I'm going to take a moment to adjust my legs. Okay, once again, we're going to rest the lower knuckle of our right ring finger upon the tip of our left ring finger. Palms up in our lap. We could do this for 9 minutes. And to do that, we could count 9 sets of 12 inhalations, because of 12 inhalations takes about 1 minute. So we can keep track of our first set of 12 inhalations by resting the tip of our left thumb upon the lower set of creases of its little finger. And then go back to, of course, once again, playing with the fingers. On the right hand, we can count the breaths, advancing our thumb up the creases of its fingers in the following manner. Let's practice right now. Having run out of creases upon which to place our right thumb, we return to our left hand and advance our left thumb to the second crease on its little finger. And now you get the basic idea of how we can count 9 to 12 sets of 12 inhalations each for a total of approximately 9 minutes. And now that we've understood how to perform chronographic crease counting, wow, 3 C's in a row, I gotta love that. So, for a literary autistic, that's just like crack. So now we return to our ring finger, resting our right ring finger's first knuckle upon the tip of our left ring finger, palms up in our lap. And now we shift gears. The most efficient way for us to practice, for us to gently invite our real or imagined subtle energies to coalesce at our crown, something described in Tibet as Lama Khyendo, is to simply play with our fingers. This time, let us rest the first knuckle of our right index finger upon the tip of our left index finger, palms up in our lap. As air enters our nostrils, we could silently and mentally recite, noticing. As air exits our nostrils, we could silently and mentally recite, relaxing. One of the most efficient ways for us to gently invite our real or imagined energies to coalesce in our chest, and a method sometimes described in Tibet as Lama Naljor, is to simply rest our right middle finger, the first knuckle of our right middle finger, upon the tip of our left middle finger, palms up in our lap. As we feel our chest swell with breath, silently and mentally we could recite the verb, noticing. And as we feel our chest subtly sink as gently we exhale, silently and mentally we could recite the verb, relaxing. In approximately 11 hours, I would very much like to return to lead today's dusk recitation, explanation, and practice of meditating like a Jedi. And if you are as geeky as me, may the Force be with you always.